Hey, what's going on, everyone? How you guys doing today? It's been 2.5 years, almost 3 years since the 2016 presidential election. As we're gearing up for the 2020 presidential election, YouTube is only going to get crazier. YouTube is only going to get more wild. And the thing is, they are going to find a way to deal with that. In fact, they have found a way to deal with that because if you weren't around in the end of 2016, if you weren't around, then you didn't see how crazy it got when it came to political commentary on this platform. A lot of people have built their absolute careers off of it and are still going strong on that narrative to this day. And I get it. It's the game. It's the hustle. It's what they have to do. But YouTube has been met with nothing but criticism as a result of this. And since YouTube, when they're criticized and they feel they have to respond, they usually do this in a way that is not good for anyone. And that's kind of what's happening here with this new article coming up on The Verge saying that YouTube is hiring managers to work with political creators. Now, I remember election day. I remember putting out a video about why Hillary Clinton lost and why Donald Trump won. There were two separate videos on the day after election day. And the Hillary Clinton losing video was one of my highest grossing videos ever because it was controversial and people wanted to know about it, and it did really well. And politics did really well in 2016. But then something happened in 2017. It's called the adpocalypse, and it is a direct result of Donald Trump getting elected. It's not his fault. I want to make that perfectly, abundantly clear. It's not his fault, but it is the reason why it happened. The media, realizing that YouTube played a major part in the last election in regards to spreading certain messages, decided to target us, to target the platform, and go after PewDiePie and selectively edit a bunch of content he made in order to paint it in the most negative light. And ever since then, 2.5 years since then, the rest of us have been struggling to just stay afloat. And it looks like this is only going to make matters worse, saying that this is an effort to more effectively handle issues and concerns. So, YouTube is hiring managers to work specifically with progressive political publishers and conservative political publishers as the company faces accusations of censoring right-wing political content amid a crackdown on supremacist content and conspiracy theories. I don't really think it's much of an allegation that they have been targeting more conservative content than left-leaning political content, considering the fact that all the nighttime comedy shows are all left-leaning and those all do really well. But the thing to consider with that, as a bit of a side note, is when it comes to those particular channels, they have network backing, and those networks then go to YouTube with their own set of advertisers, and YouTube likes money. So I think that's why they get a bit more play. But when it comes to conspiracy theories, especially coming off of InfoWars and anything like that, you can kind of see why they're trying to circle the wagons. It's not necessarily going to work, and I don't believe it's entirely the right call, but that's why they're doing it. Now, the new managers will focus on advertising partners on YouTube channel development strategies and representing the political publisher landscape within the organization. Managers will also work on bringing issues to resolutions, organizing programs and events to help political publishers best utilize YouTube. Again, over the course of the past couple of years, YouTube's been doing a lot of these creator days where they bring a lot of people together from different political, I think any channel size, that's over 100,000 subs can get in on this action. And what they do is they try to bring you in and teach you the best practices for YouTube, regardless of your political affiliation. I went to one back in November where Hunter Avallone was there, as well as a couple guys who do commentary out of China and some left-leaning channels. Politically speaking, there was an anti-vaxxer that was there. I mean, there was literally no block on what kind of content was going to be helped in this particular 2-day event. So they really don't have that massive of a bias when they're trying to get money. The end of the day, it's all about money. It's all about power. It's all about content, right? Ultimately, it's about the cash. So that's kind of where we find ourselves here. Now, a spokesperson for YouTube said the roles were a new addition within its news division, saying one of the ways we work with top creators is by connecting them with YouTube Partner Manager. This coming from Ivy Choi, who's a spokesperson, saying we have experts for many of our content categories and are growing the partnerships team that works specifically with news creators for both conservative and progressive news outlets. I have a partner manager. As nice as the guy is, and I like the guy quite a bit, we're not necessarily simpatico when it comes to the type of content that I create and the kind of content that he is good at managing. He's a very sweet dude. I met him at VidCon, very nice guy, but we don't mesh on that front very well. And so I don't know if it's just like kind of a random draw of the hat, or with these new managers, if they're going to specifically find political content to help navigate it towards success, because their ultimate goal is success, because the more money you make, the more money they make. And they still set the terms for the advertisers. So even though they're not supposed to tell you what kind of content you can produce, because I actually had a conversation with a person from their monetization team, and I asked her point blank, what am I allowed to say? What am I not allowed to say? And she was like, I can't tell you that. I think these managers are going to learn what those ins and outs are, and then maybe not directly tell the content creator, but do what they can to kind of maybe guide the conversation to where the content creator can go, oh, and I get you. I get it. I see what you're up to. Now, YouTube employs several partner managers to work with creators on a number of different topics, including gaming and beauty. But this new appointment appears to have come in response to the increased criticism around YouTube's handling of politics. Conservative creators have voiced their frustration with the company, accusing YouTube of censorship and discrimination on the right. Senator Ted Cruz called out the company after an incident with conservative pundit Steve Crowder, who lost his ad privileges after using homophobic language to discuss Carlos Maza. That was a whole thing. The Vox Adpocalypse label that was going around was definitely misleading. YouTube 100% was talking about what they were going to do back in January of last year. But when it comes to most YouTube outrage, and I'm just going to be honest here, most YouTubers don't pay the hell attention. They don't know what's going on. They wait for something to happen. They react to it. No one ever pays attention to what's coming down the pipeline. And so really it's just, I was laughing at most of that controversy because I wasn't happy that it was happening, but I was like, no, this was already going to be talked about like back in January. Pay attention, people. This is what we're here for. So he says that conservative creators then threatened to leave YouTube en masse in early 2018 because of conservative political pundits. Pundits, gun advocates, conspiracy channels, and other right-wing voices on YouTube aired their frustrations after people in the community started to receive community strikes or were locked out of their channels. And none of those things were good. But let's be fair. When they're threatening to leave YouTube kind of, the more egregious people, they want them gone. When it comes to like gun channels after a shooting, they always have a target on their back, and that's not right. If they're just talking about their enthusiasts, not an issue. Unfortunately, that's just the way our society operates. It's always a giant spotlight on something, and there's an absolute large amount of splash damage. So it's probably better in those moments for those creators to back down a little bit, to like maybe pull back a little bit and then wait for it to blow over and then come back when no one's looking at them. But while there's a spotlight, any move they make gets massively amplified. So that's unfortunately how these things work. It's not a YouTube thing, it's a societal thing. And that is just part of it. So that's how I view it, at least. And at the same time, it's like most of these people are going to come back to YouTube. That's where the audience is. I see people all the time say, go to BitChute, you got to go to BitChute. And like, there's no one watches on BitChute. Not to the amount of people that you would need. People are going to be able to find a small subsection on BitChute, right? Or what's a DTube, decentralized tube, which I actually do like. But you might be able to find a niche of people there, but the wider audience is still going to be on YouTube. And that's where the 2 billion monthly active users go. So you still have to use it in order to then cultivate an audience. Whether it's good or bad is entirely up to you. Now, when YouTube executive Robert Kinsel was pressed about this back in May of 2018, he said that the company doesn't intend to be on one side or another, although it does appear, and I will, even from an optics perspective, that they do tend to be channeling against the right-leaning, conservative-based channels more so than the left. And even now they're being sued by LGBTQ creators claiming discrimination. So YouTube is always in this massive conundrum. It's always stuck between a rock and a hard place, good or bad. And let's be fair, let's be realistic. There's rarely any ever good that comes out about YouTube. Not a lot of people are ever going to sit there and say, you did good, YouTube. You did a good job. Usually it's, you guys suck. Die. There's so much of that. Because that type of instant guttural reaction to something is generally what tends to gain a lot of people listening, a lot of attention. and then people use that as a way to then to amplify their own message for their own benefit. It's an interesting world we live in right now, where so many people are like, this is the thing. I was reading some people on Twitter, and they're like, I think like Mick Juggernuggets was like, we need to stand together against YouTube. And I'm all like, dude, when everyone can play the victim, in which, let's be fair, a lot of people are able to do that. Whether you believe it's valid or not, people still do it all the time, you know? And like there's a guy recently who was out there saying, oh, I've been doxxed, but he claimed to be doxxed a year ago, and you can only be doxxed once. So it's like, anyone's going to find an avenue to use. And that's just, again, it's the hustle. That's their game. That's fine. But, and I responded back by saying, because everyone's able at this point to like kind of isolate themselves in order to play up the narrative, whatever narrative that might be, you're not going to get a unified front. There's the YouTuber union that's trying to come together that I'm not too sure how good that's going to do. You got this lawsuit, which I'm not too sure how that's going to do. And I would argue that this lawsuit against YouTube for discrimination from the LGBTQ community should probably broaden itself out to being a widespread class action against YouTube. But I'll tell you this, I was at the YouTube party at VidCon, and I saw a lot of these people at the YouTube party at VidCon. So, it is what it is. Now, he says here that our message is that we absolutely are leaning into freedom of information and freedom of expression, subject to our community guidelines. But we did just see a report come out the other day that talked about how there were like former moderators at YouTube, who have said that top tier creators are not subject to the same rules, the same community guidelines as other creators. Look at Logan Paul and the Japanese forest situation. That was one of those situations that would have gotten almost anyone else completely booted off of YouTube entirely. But Logan Paul just got a slap on the wrist, a little bit of timeout time, and then he came back, and now he's back on top, and no one's bringing it up again because even though it's been almost 2 years. Now, the heightened moderation has partly come in response to concerns about YouTube being a gateway for spreading harmful conspiracy theories, including the shooting at Parkland, Florida in March 2018. A video that called David Hogg a crisis actor appeared on YouTube's trending page, which collects videos and puts an emphasis on them for site users. Conspiracy theorist Alex Jones was accused YouTube of censorship against conservative and political bias when his channel was close to being deleted before it actually was. Now, the thing with Jones, as a quick caveat, he was removed from YouTube because he was circumventing the streaming ban. He had lost the privileges for 90 days, opened up other accounts, had those other accounts streaming the show. YouTube got him on that. Do other people do that as well? Yeah, 100%. So like I said, they kind of they don't apply the rigid, strict community guidelines equally, and that is ultimately a problem. Now, she says here, this is from Julie Alexander. While it may appear to be censorship to some, there's often little validity to these accusations. In Jones's case, the 2 community guideline strikes he received were because he violated YouTube's guidelines for cyberbullying and harassment, not because of his political views. And that was some stuff involving trans issues, and there's also the whole situation with Sandy Hook. Now, outcries over perceived censorship have seemingly only gotten worse in today's political climate. YouTube's decision to hire managers to act as direct liaisons to conservative and progressive creators who have complained that they feel unheard, despite being able to talk to CEOs or like people like Susan Wojcicki, feels like an obvious next step. And that's the thing too. When I was at VidCon and I was talking to the people who were there, the product team, I flat out told them, I'm like, one of the reasons why people are so mad is because they don't feel like they can talk to you directly. Like, I am here. I was invited to be here. I get the opportunity, but a lot of other people don't feel that way. And so then frustration sets in because you don't directly communicate with the creators. When you put out a blog post, it goes to like one of maybe 3 locations, and we wait for a tech blog to talk about it or someone to quote tweet it on Twitter. And then that's when people find out about it. It's not like a direct email, and it's not like they can't do it. They totally can do it. So I think it's ridiculous that they haven't put in a better place in order to have these kind of situations. Like, what they should do is have like a massive live stream where people can request a number and then have a question asked. And to Susan Wojcicki, who is trying to play up the I'm hip to it, guys, but she seems to only really be hanging out with like one certain group of people. And those are the ones that are probably the most advertiser friendly. A lot of other people out there who aren't advertiser friendly, even if they are realistically or aren't, are the ones who feel like they're being left out in the cold. And that is part of where this lawsuit coming in from the LGBTQ creators is coming from, as well as this conservative outcry. And having these kind of political managers is a solid first step, because these people will be able to kind of be the go-betweens with content creators and the platform and what's allowed, what's not allowed. But at the same time, it could potentially be used to shift the wording and the animosity and the anger and the tone of certain discussions. And if that's the case, there are going to be people out there, both on the right and the left, they're going to say that that exactly is pushing censorship. And that, of course, is the problem. And I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know what's going to happen. All I know is that they're doing this in order to prepare for the next presidential election. Because if you think 2016 was crazy, just wait till 2020. But anyway, your thoughts, your opinions, let me know down in the comments below. I do look forward to them. Thank you very much for listening to this. Have yourself a great day, and peace out.